Hello and welcome to another League of Legends tutorial. My name is Virkayu, and in this one we will be considering the difference between meta and non-meta champions. And the points made will be general in terms of our assessment, but as a jungle main I will use those champions as an example template. So if you're struggling to learn what to play outside of meta picks or simply want a better understanding of the landscape, hopefully this video can help you. It will be a bit more freeform in terms of how I speak about it, but we will look at some in-depth examples as per usual to help drive the points home. Now every one of you has different reasons for playing the game, especially ranked, whether it's learning new and strong champions in order to win and climb, or perhaps honing your skill set and having fun with a unique playstyle or champion that can surprise enemies and bring you wins in a different way, albeit with potentially more risk and struggle. It is important, however, that we understand what the meta is and what makes champions particularly good at one role over another. To help with that purpose, U.GG has partnered with us again to assist. Heading to U.GG and clicking on tier list on the top right will reveal a detailed breakdown of every position and region from the current patch or other patches should you choose that assigns a grade to each champion based on their pick rate and win rate. Now you can filter according to your region, your rank, and your position to get a general idea of what the strongest champs are in your MMR in solo queue on the current patch, but from here it can be very clearly seen what the meta is, the strongest, most used, most versatile champions in a position in the current iteration of the game. So if you're simply looking for what to play in terms of raw strength with winning as your sole goal, head to the builds and rune page to see the most commonly and best successful builds, runes, and ability paths in 30 seconds or less on U.GG. But the question is, what if some of us don't like those champions, their playstyles, their thematics? Well, let's consider here what a meta versus non-meta representation would look like in the context of a tier list, or in this case, decreasing viability. This isn't an actual tier list with all the junglers on it, like I've made multiple times this year, which illustrates, the strongest junglers on or across particular patches, but it's simply an example based on the current meta, so don't get mad when you don't see Lee Sin or that Aatrox isn't number one. Clearly we have our strongest, most used champions on the left hand side, and those are your sure bets, the safe bet. And there will be champions that are viable just purely because they are designed junglers, but they have a rough time against perhaps the strongest junglers, so they're not quite meta, but they're definitely viable, and Warwick is one of those examples. The realm of off meta is usually reserved for the very weakest junglers, for example how Volibear was for a very long time before Riot buffed him and his E, and then said no bears are allowed in the meta, so goodbye. Or, and this is what most people tend to mean by off meta, you have champions that are ideal or designed for another role, but we ask and answer one very simple question: can it jungle? In the case of Twitch, he has become a niche, cheesy, hard carry pick. He is sort of on that fringe of what's viable and off meta at this point because of that development. Now my favorite trio, for example, would be Ornn, Kaiser, and the occasional Zyra. These champions are clearly better or designed for another role, but they offer something that lets them be viable junglers in the right hands. But what is it that determines a meta? What determines a good jungler? So let's look at our core group at the top and see what they have in common that makes them good at what they do, or the very best at what they do. Off the bat, one of the first metrics we consider is the ability to first clear and subsequently gank, or even you could throw in taking that scuttle crab at this point. These are the most basic concepts a jungle champion should have attributed to them. Camille has a hookshot E for those level 2 ganks. Even though first clear isn't the fastest or most efficient, she can gank with the unparalleled pressure and easily shove off weaker junglers from scuttle crabs in order to get their gank priority. Graves, our favorite Graves, has a bit of everything and is the reason most consider him by far the best jungle. Fast farming, burst damage, easy harvest stacking for late game one-shots, successful ganks due to his obnoxious smoke screen and his ability to dash over walls and close gaps after people have flashed. And Talia is almost a hybrid of those two as well. Her first farm isn't the absolute healthiest and fastest, but once you have some AP and a few points in your queue, you can really clear it out super quickly, and you merge it with a large range ultimate, devastating W and E CC burst combo, plus poke, and you have a scary package for those players who wish to learn her and try and carry as hard as they can. Rengar, Kha'Zix, Evelynn, Nidalee, Shaco, Kindred, Xin, all these champions have something in common. They have either CC, high movement speed, fast farming, strong damage output, a dash of some kind, camouflage, or of course, some combination of these attributes. All of these contribute to their ability to gank, fight, and skirmish around crucial areas of the map, while ganking and exerting pressure in ways that nets advantages for your teams in terms of towers and dragons. If you're rocking Malphite jungle, and you walk into the river versus Camille, Talia, or Graves, you're probably going to be pushed away. You like CC, you like damage, you can't sustain versus them early, you lose map positioning and pressure, and consequently, the ability to apply your own pressure by dictating the jungle matchup and being the more impactful player. If you are looking at how to measure matchups in general though, I did make a detailed video about that 2 months ago that will help you in assessing your early game impact. So when you consider going an off-meta jungler, you have to understand that champion's particular strengths and weaknesses as well as the enemy's jungle power over you. You also can't underestimate the nature of affordable items in synergy with a jungle item in general that helps certain champs be strong in that role. Even runes, a fast farming jungler, even if not a typical Graves or something like that, could stack harvest really quickly with excellent counter ganks before becoming a late game menace. Now, within all of this is the role of the greater meta in terms of what's strong in other lanes and how you support that. So in solo queue, the reason tanks were so strong at the end of last year was because we had that ardent sense of meta, and the whole thing was about protecting ADCs. So what I would do is, I would just camp bot lane with Maokai and no one would ever touch my ADC. Not that you needed to with a 300,000 Janna shield. So naturally, we're not quite assessing a full look at the meta in terms of how junglers change and shift within it, but more so when you are considering what champions to play, what makes those in that particular meta very strong. In this case for us, these ones all have good early ganks, they all have mobility, they have high damage, they scale relatively well, they have early impact, and they have a lot of pressure. And if you're playing something that's weaker than that, you're gonna have to figure out how to navigate it. So can you still play Maokai? Sure. His win rate is bad because his matchups are absolutely horrible with this meta, but then you have to ask, how can you carry in his own way? You are more supportive, but you do have high CC and you can buy Moby Boots to have really fast map mobility, and you can get your team ahead with an unrelenting ganking approach. You can't farm that fast, so you have to make sure your impact is felt. If you miss ganks, the complete reduction of catch-up XP in the jungle made it so that it can be very punishing in that situation. So when you're versus Kayn, every time you gank and it fails, well, he's going to take the other side of the map and you're going to just lose that XP. And you don't have the ability to defend your jungle 1v1 or fight for scuttles 1v1, and thus you will have to give up a lot more than you would otherwise if you were playing a meta champion. So the question is, why even play off meta if there's such clear disadvantages? Well, you can often play to those champions' win conditions and negate the fact that jungling is a role. By that I mean delaying the outcome of a game until you reach a stage where there's more grouping and skirmishing once you've reached the power spike. For example, getting 2 full items in Kai'Sa means you can beat go time, and with your clearing, tower taking, and team fighting, it's almost incomparable no matter who's in the game. It's the same reason Twitch jungle's so strong, except you can cheese early ganks to get kills and leads, which give you the items enough to clear jungles, and when you go into lanes after that, and when you get into mid and late game team fights, you can absolutely destroy. The fact that you were Twitch jungle doesn't matter anymore. The same thing goes for something like Ornn. Although his clearing speed isn't that bad, he has very high levels of CC, and with something like Presence of Mind as a rune which I like to take, he can have his ult up very often and is absolutely devastating for long range ganks and map pressure. But you do want to avoid this 1v1 skirmishes with a Graves, for example, and you do want to ensure you're taking the proper precautions through vision in order to track his counter jungling and map movements. You definitely can't outpower farm him, so you must out impact him, if that makes sense. Let's look at a few examples of Kai'Sa and Ornn situationally to see how we can maximize an off meta pick and what they bring to the table. It's worth noting that the more off meta a champion is, the more proficient you have to be with those champions' mechanics and understanding, because the higher in rank you become, the more a good jungler with a meta champion will be able to counter you and shut you down with ease. So the benefit of meta is that you bring surprise to the table versus a meta champion which everyone knows and understands. If you can use this, you can carry. So in this game example, I am Ornn and I'm against a Jax who's a much more viable pick, and I don't really like his matchup in terms of Ornn. I don't want to 1v1 him in the river. He can probably abuse his power position, so my job is to play around that. Instead of concerning myself with early red buffs, because I assume he might want to invade because I'm Ornn and try and take me out, take my jungle, and basically reduce me to nothing. And the fact that of course that my team didn't ward as requested on the top side, I have since transitioned to doing that myself. I simply do my blue, gromp, and scuttle before moving to the wolves. I'm now level 3 and can move to red. If he has taken it, if I've lost it, it's okay, doesn't matter, I didn't die, I will live to fight another day, I will get another red buff. With Ornn though, I have the option of buying in the field and staying out much longer, making an impact while the enemy jungle will have to go back often. And with a Hunter's Potion and Smite, you can stay out forever. So I drag my red into the bush in case he invades, because there is absolutely nothing worse than being cheesed at your second buff by a much stronger jungler who you just cannot fight unless you have lane priority. So rather be safe, and if you don't get it, back away. Now after that I move into the top side scuttle knowing he's probably taking it. However, he did a much more safe route than I would have anticipated, and as he just took the scuttle, he's clearly moving to top side to gank for the Aatrox, who is against my Fiora. He has seen me through the scuttle vision moving up, and I guess decided to be a bit more aggressive than he should have by tower diving and basically inting over a kill to the Fiora. So while I can no longer gank, and even though there's a large horde of enemy minions, I can still duel the Aatrox and take him out. He probably doesn't see Ornn jungle show up very often, so doesn't know what to expect. He might lane against an Ornn, but an Ornn coming from a jungle is always a different approach. I don't tax after I manage to take him out, and I let the mini wave stack a bit so Fiora will have it in a favorable position upon her return. After this I move to take the Krugs and the Raptors. I have Stalker's Blade purchased, look how healthy I am, and I haven't even gone back. This is a huge advantage that I have of the enemy jungler. I've made myself full HP again, and now we see the Jax ganking mid. A normal jungle would have probably had to go back at this point to buy, and Jax would have a free gank on the Yasuo. And he doesn't consider, hey, this is Ornn, maybe he's actually stuck around. I don't have to do ridiculous things such as going back. So Jack leaps in thinking it's a free 2v1 for him, Ahri hits a charm, but I'm right there with a level advantage given my full clear and kill. I throw out my Q and immediately W for that empowered auto attack. And no, my dear friends, I didn't miss the Q. I set it up for the E slam as they attempt to retreat. This also secures a kill on the Jax and forces Ahri to flash. I let Yasuo push the wave while I stand firm before I move on. Yes, it's disrespect. I was feeling happy. Just let me enjoy it for a moment. Not many people let me play Ornn jungle and get away with it. So the Jax hasn't contemplated at all what my game plan is, and the enemy has no idea what Ornn jungle brings, so I'm in a huge position here. I can now move on over and take my Gromp on a second rotation, even though the bot lane do see me move in that way. Everyone thinks at some point I'm going to go back, not realizing I've actually bought a whole bunch of items without even doing so. I hit level 6 in the Gromp, buy some HP in the form of Barmy Cinder, and now I can gank bot in a way that no other jungler can at this stage. I ult, we kill Sivir with my Aftershock ironically, and I go off and I move to clear the pink from the enemy tribush while Jack has to back away given he is now down a level and cannot fight me because we have the advantage. It's a perfect early game with kills in each lane before the enemy Jax is even 6, and I haven't even gone back yet. Invading, contesting me at bottom side scuttle at level 2, thinking about what Ornn does, all of these things could have worked for him. I have a slow dash, slow movement speed, slower clear until I get a few points in W. A meta jungler in the know would have exploited that. But if you have that element of surprise, you can certainly carry a game when people aren't as aggressive. Now with Kai'Sa, the story is a little bit different. She doesn't have CC, no real camo until her E evolves, and no dash or gap close until her ultimate, with the exception of course of a speed up on her E. But what she does have is damage and a long range poke tool. So if you're playing Kai'Sa in the jungle, which I don't necessarily recommend because the first clear isn't that healthy, you want to understand that you are a scaling champion and your knowledge of pathing, avoiding enemy jungle 1v1s unless you have a known advantage, will let you move around the map and pick up kills where you can. Once you hit 6, you can typically do usual jungle things like tower diving, and that's important to consider when picking an off-meta jungler. Can you do all the regular jungle things, taking towers, tower diving, taking dragons? These are important. If you can't do any of that stuff, well then you're not going to have much impact at all. As Kai'Sa, your clear also increases exponentially in terms of speed as you get items and level up. You don't have the relatively healthiest first clear like I said, like Ornn, nor his CC or presence, so it's going to be much more limited. So you must understand how to get to the mid and late game in a decent position where you can win, and that's where the difficulty comes in playing certain off-meta picks. So hopefully there's more freeform discussion about the pros and cons of an off-meta jungler compared to what makes a meta jungler so good, can help you assess your own picks with something that you're interested in playing. If you want to win and that's your only concern, look at u.gg, look at the tier list, find that one suits your playstyle, and be aggressive and commanding. If however you choose your champs to play based on their lore, abilities, fun factor like I do, then consider what your champ can bring to the table and how you can navigate against much stronger picks in order to impact the game in a way only your champion can. That element of surprise. I released a video at the end of last season about Ornn vs Ezreal, and he was really strong. He would just walk in, invade, and poke you down. So if you're interested, you can go watch that and see how I approach that game. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and share if you enjoyed. Please check the description if you want to support the channel further. Subscribe for more jungle and League of Legends videos coming soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.